We're very glad you all joined us today for this live webinar. As I mentioned earlier, today's webinar is entitled, Why Mobile Threat Defense Achieves What MDM Cannot. And as promised in the abstract, the discussion will be centered around why protecting data on mobile devices, both managed and BYOD, is not only essential, but critical for the enterprise. In the current threat landscape, where 42% of enterprise organizations reported that mobile devices and web applications have led to a security incident. Before we begin, let's do some brief introductions. My name is Monique Vicenti. I'm the Product Marketing Manager for the mobile endpoint security side of the business at Zimperium, and I'll be your host for today's session. With me are my colleagues, Richard Mellick, Director of Product Strategy for Endpoint Security. Hello, Richard. Can you introduce yourself today?
Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here. Happy to talk about the threats.
And we have Brian Thornton, one of our brilliant solutions engineers. Hello, Brian. Can you introduce yourself today?
Hi, Monique. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome, and looking forward to sharing some of our information with you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for introducing yourself. And before we dive into today's discussion, some quick housekeeping items. If you have any questions, please submit them via the Q&A function, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go. Any questions that might require some research, we run out of time, we will follow up with you after this session and get your answers. We will also be asking you some polling questions at various points during the presentation. We ask that you please respond to them as they pop up. Your feedback is of immense value to us, so let's keep this interactive. Thanks in advance. All right, we're actually going to launch the very first one of those now, just to get a sense of who's attending the webinar today. So in your opinion, has your organization improved its mobile security strategy by adding new solutions during or in the wake of the global pandemic? So we'll give the attendees a minute to answer the questions. All right. With the polling questions out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So our webinar agenda today, we're going to talk about the current mobile threat landscape, why MDM is insufficient to protect your organization, and we'll see it in action with the demo. So the current threat landscape, we will jump into another polling question. How many of the mobile devices connected to your network are unmanaged? For example, BYOD. So we would really like to see you answer these questions because it gives us an idea of what your landscape looks like and how we can help you protect your devices. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Richard to talk about mobile threat landscape.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Monique. So a couple months ago, Zimperium released the 2022 Global Mobile Threat Report. And in that report, a very comprehensive report, we did a mixture of surveys and data that we were pulling in from the endpoints that we secure. So in the survey component, we interviewed and surveyed around 110 to 120 global IT and security leaders, asking them various questions. And one of the big questions that we asked them was, how many of the mobile devices connected to your network are managed and unmanaged? And we broke that up into the tablet and smartphone category because they are two very different things, as we're seeing tablets starting to be used a little bit more as desktops or supplementary mobile production units. So as we see here in that survey, 66% on average of the smartphones connected to the enterprise are unmanaged. So unmanaged means no mobile device management. And this typically falls into the category of BYOD, while 29% are managed. Now, some very uh, uh, sharp people will notice that that does not add up to 100%. There was a small question in there of I don't know. And, that was a little bit of a concern for all of us as well, being that we are security minded. If they don't know if their device is connected and the mobile devices connected into their network are managed or unmanaged. Now on the tablet side, we're seeing 55% are unmanaged, while 39% are managed. Again, there was that third question of saying I don't know. Again, raising that same concern to us and saying, how do you not know what's connected into your network? But that kind of sets the tone and the scope of what the mobile device has really introduced into the enterprise as we have scaled beyond the office walls. COVID-19, as we all know, accelerated this move to the hybrid and remote and distributed workforces that many of us are still in today, even as restrictions and the pandemic have lessened and the impact is lessened. We still work remote. As a matter of fact, my whole team here, as we are on this call, we are all in different states and working distributed from each other. And this is something that's here to stay. It accelerated it to 5 to 10 years. And with that acceleration, we saw a massive increase of the adoption of mobile devices as productivity units within the corporate workforce. And we also wanted to know how many of the organizations had enabled BYOD pre-COVID. Now, this is kind of an interesting aspect. Is some of us have been in this space that have had BYOD. Bring your own device and connect it into your system. Get your email, access Drive, access Dropbox, access Salesforce. But before COVID-19, those same respondents reported back 60% of them had not had a BYOD policy in place. And almost 20% at the time of the survey, which was at the end of last year, still hadn't implemented something, while 10% were in the process of implementing. So almost 30% of organizations still 2.5, 3 years into this massive shift in the corporate workforce have still not implemented something in a BYOD policy. Now, BYOD policies are a very, diverse subject. It could be anything from controlled applications installed on the device, or just how do you access your email. But the fact that there was no thought into establishing this policy, no thought into having this visibility, no thought into addressing this larger attack surface is a concern for us as we see this rise in attacks against the mobile devices. So what are those numbers? Now, these are the numbers that really, really stand out to us. The report, by the way, you're welcome to download it. There's a big one and a long one. There's the big one, 68 pages. The short one is 3 pages. It's just an executive summary. 10% of the applications that we have analyzed, or 10% of the applications installed on the average bring your own mobile device are enterprise focused. Now, the average application number on a smartphone is 100 to 120. So we're looking at 10 to 12 applications that are specifically designed for enterprise use, work, productivity. You're seeing everything from communication tools like Slack, Telegram, and multi-factor authentication, things like Duo, Okta, Google Authenticator, as well as email and Salesforce and every other SaaS tool that has come out of the woodwork to support this growing hybrid and distributed workforce. Now, in our research in this survey, 42% of the responses also reported mobile devices and web applications led to a security incident in 2021. And as I said before, 60% of those organizations also reported no BYOD policy in place pre-COVID-19. Now, on the application security side, because here at Zimperium, we're not just securing the endpoints, but we're securing the applications as well, full comprehensive mobile security packages. We also found that 81% of financial applications potentially leak sensitive information. That's kind of scary if you really think about it. The amount of data that we rely on and we put through on these critical applications like financial applications or workforce applications. And if a financial application is potentially leaking sensitive information, what are the other applications doing? Now, I see on the right side, we have the bigger numbers. There was a 466% increase in exploited zero-day vulnerabilities used in active attacks against mobile endpoints. Now, I want to define this for you. When we say exploited zero-day vulnerabilities, we're meaning this number is representing the number of active attacks done against a device using an unknown vulnerability that was only reported on after the attack happened. So 0 days, unknown, all that. 466% increase. In 2020, there were 3 0-day exploits against mobile devices. In 2021, there were 17. In 2021, that accounted for 1 in 3 0-day attacks against users and around the world. And for those of you that are now thinking, oh, it's probably all Android, I'm just going to burst that little bubble right now. Historically, if we look at all the 0-day attacks going against mobile devices, Apple accounts for over 60% of those. Why? It's because the mobile device is a walking data trove, ripe for theft, ripe for access, either for passwords, breaking into applications, or even spyware. We have all heard the news around Pegasus and the subsequent impact that has had with the 50,000 people that were targeted in the latest campaign. Pegasus is nothing new. It's been around for 5 years, but we continue to see it come back, as well as everything from banking Trojans, malicious networks, the likes. Now, on the malware side, Zimperium has its own analysis engine that we use in machine learning that has analyzed over 5,000 new mobile malware samples every single day, accounting for over 2 million brand new samples in 2021. So as you're sitting here thinking about what does your threat landscape look like, and all those mobile devices that are connected into your network, are they increasing your attack surface or decreasing it? On a global breakdown side, mobile malware, 1 in 4 devices. Now, let me clarify where this data is coming from. This data is pulled directly from the endpoints that we secure from the organizations that opt into providing us the anonymized data. We follow GDPR compliance and multiple other security and privacy standards. We do not see customer data. We do not see we don't even see industry data in this sense. We're just seeing the threat. And the way that we work is we have the engine installed on the endpoint, and Brian's going to go over this in far better detail, but the engine's installed in the endpoint, and if something negative happens, something bad happens, there's an active threat against the device, against an application, against the user, it reports back to our global dashboard. So these customers opted in. So when we looked on a global scale, more than 1 in 5, almost 1 in 4 mobile endpoints encountered malware in 2021. So if you're a household of 4, one of your people in your household encountered it. But if you're an enterprise and you've got 1,000 employees, that's a significant number of devices that have potentially introduced malware into your ecosystem. We also seeing a little over 1 in 10 encountering man-in-the-middle, malicious websites, and scans. I want to focus on the malicious websites. This is a broad category that we categorize, that we use to speak to phishing. And malicious website means that they have actually clicked the link. We do not scan text messages or emails or any kind of communication. The only time our anti-phishing technology steps in is when the link is actually activated, and then we go into the process. That's, again, privacy focused. So that means on the enterprise devices that we secure, because we are an enterprise security company, over 1 in 10 of the mobile devices clicked on a phishing link. We send our users for phishing training all the time, yet they continue to fall for them on mobile devices. Is that a surprise to anybody? I don't think so, but it's still scary when you start to see the numbers there. Then you get down to the other areas: no malicious networks, traffic manipulation, compromised devices, and rogue access points. Now, if you're interested in your specific region, I welcome you to download the report and see what it looks like in your area. So we're going to have it over to this polling question. Which of the following threat vectors is your organization most concerned about? Mobile malware, identity or account theft, mobile or web security exposure, or unauthorized apps and resource access? Now, when we talk about this, these are all attack vectors through mobile devices. Unauthorized app could be using an API to connect into one of your applications, potentially collecting information and sending it off to a resource that you have not vetted, you have not scanned, or misconfigurations within your web application that you use internally and for your customers. There's some stories out of 2021 where the BrewDog's application had their API hard-coded into their app. And somebody took that API and unlocked the door. And they were able to get access to over 200,000 user records, as well as critical investor information. As we all know, identity and account theft is very, very prevalent within the attack surface. That's a huge area. Mobile devices, we have our password stored on them. It could be emailed to us, or if you're like my wife, you put it in a notepad, and it drives me crazy. And of course, mobile malware being a threat. Hopefully you've answered that question. So when we also surveyed that group of IT and security leaders, we saw that 52% reported malware through viruses or phishing and ransomware were threats that they encountered in 2021. Now, they were able to select multiple threats and attacks that they encountered because, as we all know, it's an ongoing process. You're going to run into more than one. 46% of them reported identity or account theft. That's incredible. And 42% tied here mobile or web application security exposure and unauthorized apps and resource access. I want you all to think about, what is it they're actually trying to do? Malicious actors in the world are trying to steal your data because your data represents money, financial opportunity. And robbers rob banks, and now your server is the bank. Your data is the money. And if they have to break into a phone, if they have to hack a phone to get that identity information or compromise one of your applications or connect a malicious application through API to another application to get that data, to get that money, they will do that. And we are seeing examples of that throughout the world. I'm going to pass it back over to Monique, and she's going to talk about why MDM alone is insufficient.
All right, we're going to jump into another polling question before I go into why MDM alone is insufficient to protect your organization. So, do you think MDM is sufficient to secure your organization's mobile endpoints in the current threat landscape? Yes, no, maybe, or other. Now, recently I've been coming across a few articles, regarding MDM. Some of them talk about how MDM is the end all be all for mobile security because it's able to manage and erase a device. But as we look more and more into MDM, it's just management, like Richard had said. So it'd be great to get your thoughts on, do you think this is sufficient enough? MTD does what MDM does not. I really like seeing this slide side by side, and I know Brian knows a lot about MITRE coverage. MITRE is one of the top. It is one of the top policies that threat hunters use to identify threats. So, Brian, can you talk a little bit about this slide?
Yeah, absolutely. So with an MDM, if you wanted to cover as many possible TNCs from the MITRE ATT&CK framework, you almost have to turn it up to 11. And you end up suffering of having security lock down the device too much. So you can get a small amount of coverage from just the MDM. But when you layer in MTD, mobile threat defense, on top of and working with the MDM, you can cover across almost the entire MITRE ATT&CK framework and put controls in place to protect your end users, protect your data. And we're not going to do it in a way that is going to hamper the mobile device in any way, shape, or form. So this is just a really great way to see how that works. A lot of security professionals look at the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and it gives us a really good way of baselining what we're going to look for. And knowing that we have these controls in place helps us reduce our risk. And by putting these two together, we've got we're in a much better position to feel that our risk has been reduced. Go for it, Monique.
Thank you. So what do mobile devices need protection from? At the highest level, you need protection from attackers, but you also need protection from your own employees. On a traditional endpoint, the risk is balanced with the security of layers upon layers of architecture designed to keep them and enterprise data safe. But when it comes to mobile, the user is their own admin. They control which Wi-Fi to connect to and what apps to install. But these mobile endpoints have the same level of access as traditional endpoints do and have the same level of access to corporate data through a mobile device. Now, there are 4 primary attack vectors that I'm going to go over: device, network, applications, and phishing. So as long as the attackers are going after endpoints, they're going after the weakest link as well. In mobile, the only way to be persistent is to actually compromise the device and elevate privileges. This is where we start seeing rogue Wi-Fi networks, disguised as a local Wi-Fi network. That's where these fake networks come into play. And as bad actors leverage this technique to deploy man-in-the-middle attacks, they spy and gather sensitive information from you that could lead to, compromising not only your device through leaked credentials, but we also have to think about malicious applications. These applications, they're designed for fraud, whether through malicious code or decoy apps downloaded by unsuspecting users. And a majority of the malicious apps are downloaded through popular third-party app stores, designed to circumvent existing security scans, controls, and user protections. So this is why we say mobile devices, there's a lack of visibility that you wouldn't get with a traditional endpoint. Like with a traditional endpoint, you have that visibility. But with a mobile device, since you're not the owner of that device, it's hard to see what's going on. Now, with phishing attacks on mobile, we continue to see the rise, and it's an effective way for bad actors to target an enterprise through email, website hijacking, and even SMS messaging. The simple fact is that 90% of breaches start with a phishing attack, and the majority of enterprise employees, they check their corporate email through their mobile device. So once again, as we look at the path of least resistance, if an attacker wants to compromise a device or steal the data, the most effective way is to set up a fake Wi-Fi. And that's why it's one of the primary vectors that we look at when we analyze the various types of mobile threats. Now let's take a look at what enterprises are using their mobile devices for. At the end of the day, productivity. Productivity is the primary reason why we all have been using our device, whether we're working from home, whether we have a hybrid environment where we're still going into the office, or whether we work from a remote location such as your local coffee shop. We're starting to see more individuals come back to the office, but they're still leveraging their mobile devices for productivity at the end of the day. We see usage on Office 365. We see usage on G Suite and other tools like Jira and Salesforce. So what does this mean for mobile risk? Increasing access to corporate data with a mobile device. This blurs the lines between devices and data. Before the pandemic, at a previous company, that I worked for, it was frowned upon to check your work email from your personal device. And now companies were focused to enable BYOD policies because of the pandemic. As we shift back to normalcy, these BYOD policies are still in place. Now, increasing attacks on mobile devices are more prominent than ever. Mobile attacks now outpace Linux and IoT. From device exploits to application misconfigurations, malware, and leaky databases, the mobile device has become a ripe target for bad actors. With MTD, mobile threat defense, there are no barriers. And I think, Brian, you could do a really good job speaking to this slide because you see this day in, day out.
I do. Thanks, Monique. So with mobile threat defense, we're actually going to be able to do detections across a much wider range of attacks than just an MDM. And as I said earlier, one of the things that we really want to do with MTD is work with the MDM or without. But most of the times in the enterprise side, we're going to see a partnership between MTD and MDM. And then one of the major differentiators for us is that it doesn't matter what major MDM you're using, we can work with them, be it Intune, AirWatch, Mobile Iron, Jamf, it really doesn't matter. And then the other really nice part about that is that we can work with them concurrently. So think about if you are doing an acquisition and the other company has a different MDM. You can put both of those in and pair them up with the MTD to ensure that you're covered when you're in any sort of transitory process. And then if you retire one MDM and move everybody over, you're not going to have a gap because the MTD only supports one MDM at a time. So I can even show that when we get to the demo portion, multiple MDMs active at the same time. So with that, you're going to get a pairing of good coverage. You know, the MDM will be able to mandate some policies, whereas the MTD is going to be able to find those 0 days, find any sort of system tampering or jailbreaking or rooting that is very primitive on the MDM side. They look for one type of jailbreaking. We're looking for many. So put those together and you've got a really, really strong way to protect our end users and our data.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, at the last Gartner Summit, we saw them communicate, you need to have MTD. You need to have this different technology. And it's wonderful that they actually see this in terms of the larger perspective, but they are seeing this in the terms of how we are delivering beyond the legacy approach. Mobile device management has been the standard for mobile endpoints for the longest time. And as we have discussed during this webinar, management is only management. And to ensure you are ready for the threats of tomorrow, you need on-device protection against network, apps, and phishing. It's the same end goal of detecting, responding, protecting, and mitigating attacks against endpoints, but mobile is different. And since mobile is different, you need a different solution like mobile threat defense. All right, and I'm going to hand this over to Brian so he can do a live demo for us and you can see this all for yourself. All right, Brian, over to you.
All righty, give me just a second here. Can I get a head nod from somebody that we can see my screen?
I can see your screen.
All right. All right, I'd love to see that. We're good to go. All right, so what I've got up on my screen is our console. I've also got a phone, nothing up my sleeve. This is a live demo with our Zips MTD application actually installed on this iPhone. Now, within our console, this is going to be kind of the SOC view that you can get a really good idea of what's going on with the health of your fleet. And these are going to be MDM joined devices, BYO devices. They're all going to show up here and what kind of threats. We've got all sorts of interesting information here. That's more of a high level. You know, our current security score, there isn't necessarily a good or bad score. We just want to see that it's trending upwards. Invariably, what happens is an OS will get updated and our end users will not update it, so that it's going to trend down a little bit until those updates get pushed. So our architecture can be deployed in a number of different ways. We are cloud independent, so we can go installed on GCP, Azure, AWS, Oracle. We also have on-prem solutions available. So even if you want to go completely air-gapped or down to where it's just, I think the comment before was the shop floor. If you wanted to put it all into your organization under your control, we can install it that way as well. With that, we can give you different options for deploying the MTD app Zips out to the phone. That can be a MDM push. It can be a QR scan to just a local device group. There are many different ways to do that. So what I'm going to show you now actually is I've got my Kali Linux box running here, meaning that I am the bad guy. I'm also going to be playing the part of the good guy here with my phone. And I am at a Starbucks or random coffee shop and connected to Wi-Fi. So right now on this particular phone, I do have a couple of risks because this is an older iOS version. I'm still running 13.3.1. I've actually got screen lock disabled on it. But these items are noted here, and we can send that information back to our console if we like. But what we're also going to do is anything that we have decided that is risky or critical, and we can alert on those. And you also have the granularity to control how those alerts come in. But let's take a look at a common scenario. So we're at the coffee shop. I am on Wi-Fi, and I'm looking at upgrading my barbecue grill with Charbecue. And so just kind of looking around, everything's fine. But then the bad actor here over on the Kali Linux side is on the same network doing a little bit of social engineering and a little bit of trying to figure out what's going on there. So we will start picking on some people. And what I've done here is leveraged freely available tools to basically steal some information or manipulate the network. So in this case, I've done a Wi-Fi scan of the network so far, and I see a couple of IPs. And I have learned just through trial and error, because that's what attackers do. They just keep trying over and over, that I want to target this 156 address. And that's what this guy is here, network safety. That's our IP. And we will get that going. So we're going to throw the kitchen sink at him. We're going to do an SSL strip, a man in the middle attack, and we're going to do some image replacement. So now I've fired up BetterCap, and we're using this to kind of get in the way. So let's fire up a new window here. And I was able to grab all of that information and replace all the images with Wile E. Coyote, just using some free tools. Now, what would this look like in the real world? This could be redirecting an image to look like a bank login or a Microsoft Office login. And in reality, what they're doing is hijacking the traffic so that attackers can grab credentials or share bad information, trying to social engineer them even further into potentially going down a rabbit hole with them. Now, the interesting part about this is we actually get alerts on our Zips application. We could see that while this happened, oh, wow, there's some bad stuff going on. We've got an attack on the Wi-Fi network. And then also what's happening is over here in our threat log, let me refresh that. Oh, they're still in let me look at them. I fixed them earlier when I ran this. This type of information will show up in the threat log so that you can, as a SOC, gain that visibility as to what's going on. Unfortunately, you know where I live because I have the privacy down to a way where I'm collecting down the geographic location. You can set that. On a BYO device, we might not want to grab all that privacy information. On your corporate-owned devices, absolutely, let's take care of all that. So this is going to help you figure out what's going on, give you the telemetry to see everything that is happening to your devices. So this is just a simple way that things can do it. We've got zips actually detecting, and at any point during that chain of events, the very first time I saw the SSL strip, we could have informed the MDM. We could have set up a network sinkhole. For demo purposes, I let it go all the way through so we can see what's happening. One other thing I want to show you real quick is apparently not on my screen because I did not open it in time. So bear with me here. Here we go. So we have, this is just a video because it's a little bit more involved, and no matter how much I pray to the demo gods, it only works about 1 and 2 times every other time when I do it live. So we've got an Android device here. This is joined up to a mobile iron. It's a mobile iron managed device. We've got Android for work items that are come down on the work profile for the Android device. And what we're going to do is actually run through, get off the good network, the Z good, and then we're going to join this bad nasty. Now, what bad nasty is a Raspberry Pi that I've got, a Wi-Fi pineapple that I've got sitting on my desk. And what it's going to do is we can start seeing that the device is connected. There it is, detected a network attack. The communication between your phone is going to a bad access point. In this case, it's a rogue Wi-Fi. So what's happening in the background is that we have seen that this is on a rogue Wi-Fi. We've detected that. We have informed the MDM as to what's going on. And the MDM says, oh, you're on a rogue Wi-Fi network? Well, that's bad. Let's remove your access. And it does, just like that. So this is all done automated. It doesn't require anybody to be involved in it that's happening. It's just a way to set up how the MDMs work. But what we can also do is do automatic remediation of these. So in this case, I'm going to get off of that rogue access point, go back to a known good network, and the detection is going to notice the remediation. So at this point, we are now informing the MDM, hey, this device is no longer in a non-compliant state, and we are going to have it move the person from the group that had no access to a group that has access, and all of those Android for work items are going to come back, and then we'll get another message from the MDM that everything is safe. So this is just a really good way that we can detect across a lot of different attacks. So I want to show you just what we have as far as the types and levels of attacks that we can find. So we'll let this screen load up. So I'm going to go down to the bottom. We've got 79 different vectors that we're looking for. And then we have the ability to change the criticality of them. We can mark them as low. We can mark them as critical or elevated, however you want to do it. We've got TCP scan marked as elevated. That might get a little noisy, so we might want to move that down to a normal level. System tampering, so we can detect if they're disabling SE Linux on an Android device, if they've sideloaded us an iOS app. We are also doing risky sites, so for phishing links, we can see whether or not they tapped it, whether they actually got through and visited it, depending on how it's set up. We are protecting against Pegasus. We've named it only because people asked to see it named. But as Richard mentioned earlier, we've actually been protecting against Pegasus for almost 5 years because of the way it behaves. We can figure out what it looks like, make that detection, and then give the ability to have either the MDM or the device itself start doing different things to manage these. So across these almost 80 different types of attacks, we're going to do a detection, whether or not that device is a BYO, whether it is fully managed by the MDM, if it's in a shop room floor connected to Wi-Fi, or if they're at the airport on LTE. One other thing that I wanted to point out is because all of this happens on device, so the Z9 engine, which is the machine learning and the AI algorithm that actually makes all this work, lives on the device. So all of this detection happens on device. It doesn't require a cloud connection. So even if someone's on a plane and they don't have an internet connection and they're in airplane mode with Wi-Fi turned off and they are messing around and sideload an app, not saying that happens a lot, but who knows? We're still going to be able to protect them. It doesn't matter if they're in China behind the Great Wall. It also doesn't matter if they're connected to their home network. That level of protection happens from the Z9 engine running in this application on that device. All of this information goes back to the threat log so that you can actually see what's going on within your environment, giving you great telemetry for your IR teams to figure out what happened, where it can go. This information can be exgested so you can respond to all of these threats right here in our console, or you can send it off to a SIM and let it do even more processing and start sharing that information out with other security tools, because we are absolutely better together. Much like we are with our MDMs, we work better together. Now, on the management side, we are a full enterprise solution. We have the ability to do role-based access control on who can log into the console, who can view, who can make changes. We see a lot of late is giving system administrators full access to everything but privacy, and then having the privacy officer actually have the ability to log in and make changes to what we can do to our privacy. All of our policies, privacy policy, threat policies, phishing policies, are group-based. So you can have differing level of policies applied to them. So as I alluded to earlier, for our BYO devices, we probably want to, not collect any of the location. We want to set it to GDPR levels so we can adhere to those compliances. Or if we're in the corporate-owned devices, we want to collect everything and pull all that information back. With our integrations, we can support, as I said earlier, multiple MDMs at the same time, pulling in different groups. So we've got Microsoft Endpoint Manager or Intune, Mobile Iron in here, Workspace ONE / AirWatch, depending on what you want to call it. On a couple other demo environments, I've set up Jamf. I've also set up MOS 360. We have the ability to connect to all of these different MDMs at the same time to help you be able to manage your devices from the MDM and then detect and protect with an MTD solution. All right, so that's what I wanted to cover today. I did see, looks like we have an announcement or any questions. All right, so it looks like no questions at this point. And I'm talking slowly to see if anybody's just typing. All right, so I'm going to hand it back to Monique. I'm going to stop my share. Thank you so much for the taking the time and listening to me and letting me share our product with you.
All right, well, thank you for showing that. Okay. Now, with Zimperium, we protect enterprises against mobile risks and attacks. And Brian definitely showed that with the zips. And we do it in two ways: on the endpoints that the employees are using, or on the apps that the enterprise is producing. This is all part of our mobile 360 protection platform, and it's backed up by a security ecosystem. Zimperium integrates seamlessly with the SIMs, XDRs, UEMs, and, like Brian showed, other MDMs that you're using to monitor, manage, and secure your environment. And the full technology is backed by a top-notch mobile research organization that's committed to classifying and discovering the latest threats against both iOS and Android devices. Brian, do you have anything that dovetails our how we handle mobile protection, in a 360 ecosystem?
Oh, it helps if I come off mute. The only thing that I want to kind of add to this is, we focused very heavily today upon our endpoint protection, MDM, MTD, and that's only half of the story. We also want to make sure that we're protecting the applications. So we have, as another part of our business, a way to actually introduce security into the application so that we can tackle security from both sides, from our actual endpoints that our employees are using, and then even protecting our applications that maybe our customers are using. If we put those together, we're going to work better together to make our systems that much more secure. And by using some of the great features that we have under the hood, like our threat research team and our Z Lab, by providing all of that information up, we just keep making the system better and better. And we're always looking for partners that are going to work with us to help them protect themselves and, make us all do a little better in the world. And there's my dog in the background. My apologies.
Thank you, Brian. Since we have about 10 minutes left, I wanted to open it up for any questions we haven't answered. As a reminder, please submit them via the question function in the BrightTalk platform. While we're waiting for the questions to queue up, I have some general announcements to share with you all. The week of June 6th through the 10th is going to be a very busy one for many security teams. That week will be at both RSA and in the Gartner Security and Risk Management Summit in North America. On the European side, we'll also be at Money 2020 in Amsterdam and at the OWASP Global Summit, which is happening virtually this year. Check out our events page this Monday to see the individual events and where you can find us or schedule a meeting with all of us at these events. Now, we also have some upcoming webinars. On May 17th, we have Securing O365 and Enterprise Apps on Mobile Devices, recommendations from Gartner, featuring Gartner analysts and VP Chris Silva and Zimperium CTO John Patterson. So this webinar, I would highly recommend that you tune in. It's going to be a really good one. As previously mentioned, Gartner did definitely communicate like this is something you have to have if you access Office 365 and other productivity tools. On June 23rd, the first half in review, the mobile threat landscape of 2020, featuring our very own Richard Mellick. Register for both of these webinars on our BrightTalk channel. Last but certainly not least, our 2020 Global Mobile Threat Report was launched on March 14th. We encourage you to get your copy today. As we went through the previous data points, that Richard so graciously talked about, all of that data is located in this threat report. It tells a very comprehensive story of mobile threat reports from phishing, device, malicious applications, and it has a lot of really great global statistics as well. All right, let's go ahead and check to see if we have any questions. All right, folks, looks like we don't have any questions. That's all the time we've got for today. So thank you so much for attending today's discussion. We hope to see you at any of our events in June or early June. So please feel free to contact us with any questions at info@zimperium.com or visit us at zimperium.com for more information.